Hello, wizards, witches, and everyone in between. My name is Emma, and welcome back to another wrap-up. So, March was a crazy month. I think it was crazy for everybody. Kind of glad it's over. April is my birth month, so of course, I'm partial to April. I hope April is better for all of us than March was. So in March, I read 7 books, and for the most part enjoyed them. So the first book I read in March, which I think I finished like the 1st or 2nd of March, is The Hunger Games by Suzanne Collins. I reread this for the Hunger Games read-along. The live show for this was on Avery's channel. I will link it down below. Obviously gave it a 5 out of 5. The Hunger Games is amazing, you know? And I would argue that Hunger Games is almost always relevant, unfortunately, in our society, but especially now, I don't know, I've just kind of been in the mood for like a dystopian. I have always found Katniss to be really, really inspiring, and I just love her so much. And her relationship with Prim, and I really love how her way of playing the game is so much different than Peeta's, and I could make a whole video on that. I love Peeta. For all you Peeta haters out there, I don't understand you. I think it's really cool that in the Hunger Games series we have the female character is the more like athletic and the dominant one. You know, it's very clear even before they even go into the Hunger Games that Katniss has a better chance of survival just based on who she is and her skills. And then you have Peeta, and his physical and like athletic abilities and skills aren't really something that you can easily see translating into the arena and being helpful, but they are. And I like the fact that he's kind of the behind the scenes person who's good at the verbal stuff, because the games are a lot more than just what's in the arena. You know, it's all the interviews and things like that, and he's really good at capturing a crowd and, you know, playing that kind of game, where Katniss is awful at speaking to people and forming alliances or, you know, getting a certain message across, and so she's more of like the physical one. I hope that makes sense, but I think it's just cool that we have that, because usually it's the guy who's always like the athletic one and the girl's the one who's better at like verbal stuff. So anyway, 5 out of 5 stars, of course. So next I listened to a memoir, which was The Princess Diarist by Carrie Fisher. I had previously listened to her memoir Wishful Drinking last year, and that one was way better in my opinion. I love listening to memoirs, especially when the person who, you know, wrote it reads it. But this one just lacked depth to me, and like a good half of it was just her and her relationship with Harrison Ford. There's only so much you can say about that, and so I feel like it was kind of just repetitive and, I don't know, trying to like justify things that happened a really long time ago, and like speculating about like how he feels about it, and it was just kind of odd. Like a lot of it was about her and her perceptions of Harrison Ford back in the day. So it wasn't even focused on her for like half of it. It was odd. I gave it 3 stars because of course I love Carrie Fisher. It was funny at times, and I do like reading her stuff and like getting to know more about her as a person. But as far as like a first memoir of hers, I definitely would recommend Wishful Drinking, because you actually get more of an in-depth idea of like her and her upbringing and all that kind of stuff. Next I read Dry by Neal Shusterman, and I also gave this one 3 stars. I had started this about a year ago physically, but I got the book from the library and I didn't finish it in time, and then I just never bothered to put it on hold again. So I decided to listen to the audiobook this time, and what a time to listen to a book like that in a time like this. So it is about California completely running out of water, and it kind of happens all at once. You know, someone has the faucet turned on and it just stops. And you come to realize that part of the reason why it all happened at once and people weren't able to prepare for it and stuff like that wasn't because it came out of nowhere, like a drought like that doesn't come out of nowhere, but that people in California weren't properly informed and the state and the government did not disclose the problems that were actually happening. So it was a time, living in California, it's obviously a thing that we deal with, is that issue. And it was really interesting because although it was set in Southern California, they mentioned the city that I live in, which is a really small city in California. And a lot of it, you know, they talk about the Central Valley a lot and stuff like that. And so that was just really interesting. I never thought I'd read a book that mentioned where I live. So because the whole place runs out of water, these characters, there's a couple different people from a couple different perspectives, which you know how I feel about that, don't really like having too many perspectives. They just kind of go on this journey to, you know, find water, fix the problem, what is the problem, and there's, you know, people are going crazy, killing each other over like one water bottle, and the doomsday kind of prepper people, you know, are obviously really well off because they've been stockpiling water, and there's a lot of like, it was really like graphic at times and very, very sad at times. Them going into someone's house and seeing how they're being affected by it, whether that's, you know, resorted to drinking bad water and getting dysentery, or, you know, someone slowly dying in that house from dehydration, and do they use up their water supply to help them? Or are they too far gone that they should just let that person die because someone else has a better chance of surviving? It was like, it got really dark, which I enjoyed, but my issue with it was that there were too many characters and it dragged on a little bit too long. So there was a lot of perspectives, and then there's also these weird like news flashes that were like news segments of like this story in this random part of California of this lady getting trampled because someone spotted a water bottle in her backpack and like 50 people rushed up on her or something. And those just really took you out of the narrative. So I don't know how I feel about that. While I think the premise was really good, I just didn't think it was executed well enough. Next, I listened to The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas, and I gave this 4 stars. I previously read On the Come Up by Angie Thomas last year. I listened to that as well. So I've been meaning to read The Hate You Give for a very long time, and I really enjoyed it. I think discussions of race and racism and police brutality and, you know, stereotypes and ways that our society feels about like young black men or just young black people in general. All of those discussions are so important to have, and to be able to have that discussion in the form of a book like this, a young adult contemporary, I think is amazing. And I know this book is taught in a lot of high schools, which I think is great. And yeah, I mean, as a white person with my white privilege, I can only, you know, attempt to understand what people go through to an extent, not having to experience that myself. But I do think this book provides some more insight, so I really like that about it. I'd recommend this book to everybody. Next, I read In a Dark, Dark Wood by Ruth Ware, and I gave this 3 stars. I talked a lot about this in a reading vlog, so I will link that down below. But I had read The Woman in Cabin 10 by her, which I think I gave a 4. So I wanted to read more by her, and while I still want to read more by her, this one didn't impress me as much as The Woman in Cabin 10. I've heard that it's kind of just average, and I did find that to be true, but this basically turns into a little bit of a murder mystery. It's set in England, and it's a bachelorette party kind of gone wrong. They go to this cabin in the middle of nowhere, someone dies, and they're trying to kind of piece together what happened. And what I really liked about it was the setting, obviously, but I really liked the dynamic between all the characters, because some people at this bachelorette party knew each other prior to all this, and some people didn't. And some people have like weird prejudices against some of the other people, and their whole dynamic was just really intriguing and interesting to me. The only issue that I had with it, which I talked in length about in my reading vlog, but it was that once the murder happens, and it happens very late, the pacing's very slow. Once it happens, we are taken out of the story, and our main character is now trying to reflect back on that night and trying to remember what happens. So it doesn't happen in real time on the page, which was kind of disappointing because it gets rid of the suspense and it's just something that obviously this thriller was building up to, and then it was kind of a letdown in the end. And then towards the end, it definitely felt like an Agatha Christie book, which I love Agatha Christie, but that wasn't what I was thinking that this was, you know? I didn't expect it to turn into such a murder mystery. So it was enjoyable. I would definitely probably listen to the audiobook if you just want like a decent thriller. Like I said, it was very atmospheric. I love that about it, and I like the dynamic between the characters. But as far as like the actual like big reveal and the big suspenseful plotline, it was kind of lacking in that department. So then I listened to Before the Devil Breaks You by Libba Bray, which is the third book in the Diviner series. And this book took me a hot second. These books are so long, and I always forget that because I only have been listening to them on audio, but this was like 22 hours or something, which is a lot longer than most books I usually listen to. And I gave it 3 stars. I feel like for its length, not enough happened. And I think the second book had a lot more compelling, like, story arcs for all the new characters that were introduced. And I did appreciate, because the second one was kind of overwhelming for me in terms of how many new plot lines and new characters were introduced. I like that this one just, like, picked up from where that one ended, because the first book feels so different from the second one, because the second one introduces all these new things. So I'm glad that the third one didn't introduce a bunch of new stuff again, but it just, I don't know, I just didn't really, I wasn't super invested with everyone's story arcs in this one. And I just feel like the stakes weren't as high. It felt a lot like a filler book to get us to The King of Crows, which I have on hold from Libby, so I'll hopefully be listening to that soon. I'm really excited to finish the whole series. Like I said, this was definitely my least favorite in the series so far, but I'm still invested in it. I still love all the characters. I think the writing's great. I love the historical setting. I've summarized The Diviners before, so if you don't know what that series is about, go ahead and check it out. I would highly recommend this series for sure. So the last book that I read was Four Dead Queens by Astrid Schult, which I am on the fence about giving either a 4.5 or a 5. Like I said, I'm really stingy on my 5s, and there was a little spot that really disappointed me in this, but otherwise it was so compelling. Definitely the one book this month that I felt like I could not put down. So this story follows this girl who is a professional like pickpocket, and one day her boss tells her to go steal this like comm chip kind of thing from this person, and she does, and she gives it back to him because usually what he does is sell the stuff she steals in like a black market auction. But he doesn't sell this one, which is odd. And then she sees the guy who she took it from at that auction, and he's trying to get it back, and it kind of goes from there. There's memories on the chips that she stole, so it's kind of an issue of, you know, what's on those chips, who do we tell about this, how can we fix the problem. And then, so you have that storyline, and then you have a storyline of the Four Queens, and I really loved all of the female characters in this. There's also LGBTQ rep in this, which was awesome. I'm debating about whether or not to make a whole review video of it, because I feel like I have a lot to talk about, and I don't want to talk about it for too long in this. But I also really love, there's 4 queens and there's 4 quadrants of this country, and it kind of had like a divergent thing where like different factions. One of the factions felt a lot like Abnegation to me, but I love that shit. I love like very distinctive, like you came from this place and this is what this place produces or manufactures, and then this is the types of personality traits that this place, you know, values. I always find that really interesting. So of course our 2 main characters are from different quadrants, and there was a lot. It's also a standalone, which I love a good fantasy standalone. I get so overwhelmed by series, like I never want to start a new one because then I know that I'll be invested, and then, I don't know. Standalone, it's like you just wrap it up. It was really, really good. I would highly recommend it. I really wish I'd read it sooner. Why I knocked it half a star was kind of for the same reason that I had an issue with In a Dark, Dark Wood, where, like, you know, you have this whole intrigue, you know, suspenseful plot kind of thing, and who was behind some things in Four Dead Queens. I just thought, like, I don't know. It was kind of meh. I mean, I don't know if that's worth dropping it from 5 stars. I'm not sure yet, but just know that was so good. Definitely one of my favorite books so far this year. Alright, you guys, that is it for my wrap up. Let me know if you've read any of these. I would love to hear your thoughts. And as always, please stay safe. I hope you have a great reading month in April, and I will see you next time.
Bye!